Everyone else is taken. I happen to be a little overweight, and I happen to be short and grey hair with a ponytail. And I don't care if people don't like it. Some people might decide that they don't want to talk to me. Color of skin, being a Brit, it doesn't matter. It's their problem, not mine. I love my wife, I love my friends, I love the people I connect to. And one day you realize that, and this is what is a problem for many people who have drug issues, drinking problems, narcissism issues, that you are enough. You are enough to get the results you need in your life.
Welcome to the Mind Shift Show. And today's guest is Dave Crane. He's an industry icon mentor. He has extraordinary things to share with us. I'm really excited. I met him on a live podcast, and I was completely floored by his answers and his expertise. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an utter pleasure to be here. And there's no pressure now. You said you really liked what I said before. I might sound rubbish now. So maybe you can edit in whatever I said before that was interesting.
I think that there's no possibility that you need to be edited. Thank you so much, Dave. I've watched your career and what you've done and how you help entrepreneurs. You've been in media. Tell me a little bit about your background. Where did it all start so our audience gets a bigger picture vision?
Okay, if we've got 2 hours, I'll start at the very beginning. When I was very,
Okay.
very small, so my background is I've always wanted to. Here's the thing. I grew up in the UK, and when I grew up, there weren't that many people of color in the town that I was growing up in. And so you learn to do two things. You either learn to make people laugh or you learn to fight. For me, I learned to make people laugh. And so that made me a natural entertainer. And what I learned was ultimately something that came through for the rest of my life, which is to understand the Wi-Fi code of the people in front of you. So you can connect to them, you can profile them and understand them very well. At the time, I had no idea what it was I learned. And so I always wanted to work in entertainment. I was a singer as a kid, won some talent shows. In fact, I came second in the equivalent of Scotland's Got Talent in the days before they
Wow.
had any social media. I was about 11 at the time. And so I grew up learning and wanting to work in entertainment, but my mum and dad said you should do law instead. So I started doing law, hated it, dropped out, felt guilty, spent a lot of their money on just enjoying the party. And then eventually, to cut a long story short, I became an entertainer on the holiday resorts in the UK. What was with an idea of wanting to get into radio? And so when I finally got into radio, knocking on doors and getting a position at the BBC as a freelancer, when we actually worked with live audiences, I was head and shoulders above everybody because I'd trained on the holiday resorts on how to work as an entertainer. So I worked for the BBC for about 3 years, wasn't getting promoted, wasn't getting an opportunity to grow where I was. I think I was just a number on their list. And so I decided to prove to them I was really good. So I went on a TV show called Blind Date, which in America would be the dating game. I won the Christmas show in front of 20 million people. And when I went into work and said, "What do you think?" to the new GM, he said, "I don't think your future is in this place," and got rid of me
Wow.
immediately. And
What?
it was because he didn't want me anyway. He
Mm.
just decided he wanted, I won't say racist, but he was a racist. And so I was left wondering, where do I go next? So I applied for with the video clips that I had, which people can actually see on YouTube. I used them to apply for work in the UK on TV, but it was a chicken and egg situation. What else have you done? Nothing. This is my audition. Well, we'll do something else and then let us know. I can't do anything else until you say yes and give me something else. And so after a lot of that, I went, you know what, UK, goodbye. So I left and I went to Dubai, which is the first job that came up as a DJ. And in those days, 30 years ago, Dubai was just starting off, really. So it was like a hardship post for many people. Oh, go to Dubai and we'll look after you. But what you did have was a load of people who'd left their families behind who really needed entertainment. So all my entertainment experience allowed me to move up the food chain very quickly. And so I got to go on the radio. There was a new station that started. Eventually, I became station manager of that. But on the journey, I ended up working with opening Planet Hollywood with Bruce Willis, Sylvester Stallone, Amitabh Bachchan, Patrick
Amazing.
Swayze, Wesley Snipes. I got to work with James Brown, Spice Girls, Enrique Iglesias, Brian
Yeah.
Adams. I did loads of big gigs because I was probably the only person who was able to do them at the time. And I did it for about 10 years. I became station manager. I was really well known as a kind of celebrity person. And then I stopped. I just decided personally that I'd done all I wanted to do because I was really chasing a ghost in the UK to say this is what you could have got. When you're actually at the stage where you're doing well, you're thinking, why am I still doing this? It's really hard work and I don't need to go any higher. I'm only defending where I am so other people can't take it off me. Why don't I just
I,
give it away? So I just stopped
I
doing it. I stopped immediately.
I
And
love that, Dave, right there. I'm going to take a quick moment. You found something that you're passionate about.
mm,
You created an entire career of it. And then you pivot, which a lot of people are not able to do. And then you go into here's what happened, which is sometimes we're proving to others what you're missing. And you created this empire because of it.
it was purely because I realized that I was happy in my own skin. I didn't need to show anybody else that I was worthy or great or whatever. So I just stopped. And what was really fascinating was immediately overnight, all the invitations to the openings of restaurants or big events immediately stopped the minute I came off the radio. Nobody invited me for anything ever again. And it really taught me about the relationship with me and my friends because I actually split my fiance kind of through that time as well. I had 8 friends left, 8 friends who would invite me to everything. We'd just go to little dinners, we'd have fun, we'd go and have barbecues. Everyone else I was invisible because I was not useful to them anymore. And what I find fascinating is when you watch people, especially nowadays, losing their jobs on cable TV or nighttime TV or whatever, you've got to say to yourself, now they're not super famous on a contract, are they going to disappear forever? Those who can will reestablish themselves. Those who can't really do find it hard to struggle because it's a really strange world we're in with new media. It gives you a chance to not need any sponsors, but it also means that you've got to keep pushing yourself. And so for me, I stopped being on the radar for most people. I reinvented myself as a stage hypnotist, motivational speaker, and I still did big events because I was doing them anyway. So I hosted Dubai Rugby Sevens for 20 years, and the Rugby Sevens is like the equivalent of a Super Bowl across the Middle East. Huge event with like 50 to 100,000 people in the stadium and about 200 million watching at home all around the world. And so I was
Impressive.
over a microphone working the audience and doing games and stuff. And I trained the Olympics team, and it was lots of stories of me doing all this kind of stuff. And then I was fine enjoying that. Beautiful wife, raised a daughter, and my dogs and everything. And then the pandemic hit
Mm.
and it wiped away all my income for 2 years. And my wife was a wedding photographer, award-winning wedding photographer, wrong industry during the pandemic. So we went from doing really well to zero. And I didn't have 2 years worth of, nobody knew how long it was going to last. I had about 4 to 6 months worth of money, just, able to live off that. Then it went. So what do you do? How do you reinvent yourself? How do you reach your audience when nobody has an answer for you? And so I went live on LinkedIn every single day. And when I say live, I became very adept at being able to change my studio. So I could literally just go live all the time and turn on anything I wanted. And this became a really good way to be able to broadcast. And I could show people stuff I'm working on. I could say, right, so let's have a look at this. And I could start showing people, this is what I've been working on. This is what's on LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff.
I
And
love that, Dave. You recreated yourself in the midst of chaos. A lot
you've
of
got to
people,
survive.
a lot of people sunk. I completely understand what you're talking about. I went from having 30 to 40 meetings and speaking engagements and events a week to like zero. I remember
Zero.
I wanted to hit my head on the desk. I'm like, what do I do now? And I knew if I was going to make it through, that I needed to make it about the people, which is exactly what you did. You
That's
started to
exactly it.
use your talent to help others overcome what they were going through?
So what I did, and you're absolutely right. So there's a thing called the hedgehog concept, which I'm sure you're aware of. And the hedgehog concept is that the process, and it comes from a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins. And it's like the Ikigai, but it's a more simple one, so people like me can understand. Three circles in a Venn diagram. First of all, work out what you're really good at doing. What could you potentially be best in the world at doing? Then work out what you're passionate about doing so you could do it all the time. Then work out what people will pay for. Now, previously, I love speaking, I love working with audiences, I love coaching people, and people will learn to speak. When people aren't learning to speak because there's no live gigs, what can I do next? But the lucky thing is, because I'd actually been a celebrity, I thought, I can train people to be celebrities in their industry. So
Mm,
somebody who's invisible but really good at what they do, who's got a good business but nobody knows them, I can teach them how to just tweak things, create a podcast, write a book, speak on stages, connect on social. So therefore you stand out and therefore you're miles ahead. There's a phrase, and I don't mean it with disrespect to anybody, but in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So if everybody in your industry is really quiet and doesn't say anything, but you do, you instantly go to the top of the food chain when somebody's looking for you. So I realized I created a thing called the Industry Icon Program, and I helped people like that to be able to become celebrities in their industry. One of the first things I did after that was I created a WhatsApp group and I just invited people who were feeling lonely and lost to be able to join me because I was absolutely, even though it was like a swan on the surface, you're gliding elegantly underneath your little feet are like this, and I was all over the place. And I thought, well, no, there isn't anywhere I can go to get help. So why don't I just get a group and help everybody? And someone in there will help me, and we just got a community. So I started building it, and I called it the Turbocharge Your Career 5 Day Challenge. And every month for 5 days, I would run a challenge all about branding and speaking and so on. But we'd all interact and chat, and I raised it up to about 300 people, which was great, fantastic. And then as I was doing that, I realized that what we need to do is think about community because
mm.
right now influence was big. How many people are liking, how many people are commenting? That used to be the way that people look at whether you're influential or not. But that's not it anymore. It's how many people are in your community that you can reach out to and will travel with you on your journey. That's the template that matters. So
I love that.
I've now created a group called the Thought Leaders Playbook, which is based on my book, and I'm collecting thought leaders to help them to raise their game. Because in a world with divisive politics, if people stay in their lane but they're really good at what they do, everyone's looking for a champion who is closer to them and on their wavelength. So why not empower those people to go out and make the world better?
I love what you're talking about. It's like constant recreation of self. I'm here right now. I need to start going through. And I love the other aspect of it that you're saying the community must follow, right? And that they grow with you and they continue to move forward and expand. What would you say was probably the highest moment and the lowest moment at the same time? Because I know as entrepreneurs, we get to feel that. Sometimes we even have that on a daily basis. I remember listening to Anthony Robbins, knowing that one day he's walking out on stage and he thought it was going to be the happiest day, the day that it would come. And when they reached that financial milestone, he's like, let me just continue moving.
Yeah, well, that's interesting to say about that. And I'll answer your question in a minute because one of the things that's so fascinating about the journey you're on is it's not the end goal that matters, it's the journey that matters. So
Mhm.
every day you're in your own reality TV show. You've got treat it like a game. So you can win point you can get points and upgrade yourself by eating well, by doing exercise, by reading books, by connecting with people. That raises your game. And you can also take time out, so you can go down a little bit. But you got 24 hours, then you go to sleep, then you start a new game the next day. But all you ever have is in the moment. You can't go backwards and you can't go forwards. All you have is today. And so I think that good days and bad days are equally relevant. And I love both of them because I learn from it. And one day I won't be around anymore to worry about it. So I just enjoy every single thing. So, for instance, excuse me, if I had a splinter in my finger, I would go like this and feel the splinter and go, that hurts. I don't want another splinter. I'd take it out and I remind myself what got me that splinter in the first place and just avoid having it. But I wouldn't say, oh my gosh, we can't do it. You have to learn from it and get something, and everything's got a message for you.
Mm,
So
mm.
I think it's really important. If you want me to answer the good days and bad days, um, could you rephrase what the question is? Because I could go on for 20 million years with examples, but I want to be more
You have a
precise for
lot to
you.
say, a lot of expertise to share with us. Sometimes we have low days and high days. For instance, with me, even recently, I had a moment where I felt like I was on top of the world. A partner pulls out of the project. Now I'm left carrying this project. And then a consultant, something happens with that consultant. What do you do in those moments of like that high and that low when you get it? And then you turn around and it's like, okay, it's not forever. This is just a temporary moment. How do you pivot into the next thing to continue seeing the light? And I know the whole game, I love that aspect of it. You're playing a game with yourself every single moment. So how do you pivot from those moments? Because I know some entrepreneurs, and I've had friends who check out for sometimes days or weeks at a time. They're in their bathrobe, they're in the backyard, they're struggling, and they know each other. There's a community. It's not in isolation that this is happening. It's happening to other people around them. They don't know how to cope with it.
Yeah, it's important to be able to know that you pace yourself. Certainly, as an entertainer and a speaker, when I go out and work with a big audience, after that, I've got no more to give. So I have to recharge my battery. So I'll go home, and my wife and daughter know I'm not going to speak to them because there's nothing left. But they know I'm not ignoring them. I just need to recharge myself. And it's very important to pace yourself. I've got a I've got a day that is both a major high and probably the biggest low I ever experienced. If you'd like me to share that with you, then I
Thanks.
will do. So, after the pandemic, I was desperate to get back into doing global events because there were none. And it was recommended from a friend that the ICC World Cup cricket is coming to Dubai. It's going to be in the UAE, which is a World Cup like football World Cup, but it's cricket. 2020, which is a really fast version of cricket. I know nothing about cricket at all, but that's not the point. I know audiences and I know sporting events. So I got in contact with the guys. They said, looked at my CV, said, "Yeah, well, great, we'll work with you." So I was really happy because I had the chance to go out on TV, thousands of people, global events, and then get myself back, my foot back under the table after the pandemic when everything's been zeroed. People have stopped working in entertainment, people stopped doing this stuff. So on the very first day, I went out and it was really difficult, especially when it's a sport you don't know and there's people coaching you, but kind of shouting at you at the same time. And you've got to take it on the chin because you want to learn. But at the same time, everything in you says, come and say it to my face. But you don't go with that. You get the job done. So
Yeah.
at the end of the first day, I'm exhausted. I get back home and I go to bed. And in the middle of the night, about 4:30, my home phone rings, not my mobile phone, my home phone rings. And so my wife says, "Is that the home phone?" I'm like, must be, but who'd ring us? Nobody ever rings. They only ring you on your mobile. So I picked up the phone. It's about 4:30 in the morning. And I said, "Yes, can I help you?" I was thinking maybe it's a crank call. And the person on the other side said, "Hi, this is Dr. Jones, I think it was, from Leeds in the UK. I'm at St. Mary's Hospital and your dad's got COVID and he's not going to make it." I went, okay. And I'm thinking, I've just woken up. Crank call? It's not crank call. I said, okay, is there anything we can do? He said, no, there's nothing. We've done everything. And I want you to ring the family and get people down to see him. So remember, I'm in Dubai, not in the UK.
Mhm.
My dad's in Leeds in the UK. So I had to ring everybody at 1:30 UK time in the morning, get them up, get them to get around and get over there.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, while they're getting their act together, I was blessed to have a nurse who had Zoom on her phone. Because remember, in those days, you couldn't say goodbye to people when they passed. So she held the phone for my dad. My dad had this oxygen tank on his head. And what happened, because he was quite old and he had challenges, and he was vaccinated, his breathing was getting less and he had full oxygen coming in. He couldn't sustain his breathing on his own because his
Mm,
lungs were affected by the COVID. And so it was a matter of time until and they made a decision, and my dad's chilled. My dad's like me, when it's done, it's done. He's always said to us, you know, if I go into a coma, then don't revive me. I've had a good life. I'm fine with that. And
mm,
so you joke about it until it actually comes through. And the doctor said, that's it. You know, the oxygen is getting less into his lungs, and at some point he's going to go. So I had an hour to say goodbye. And just like I'm talking to you, I had my wife on one side here, my daughter on the other side there, and I was blessed to have about half an hour with my dad before the family arrived. And when the
wow.
family arrived, and it wasn't up to me to hog the conversation with my dad, I took a step back, and of course, the phone's being held, but people are standing by, and it was a really challenging time. And so, after an hour or so, the phone ran out, and I had to say goodbye to my dad. And later on that afternoon, a few hours later, he passed. I was blessed that one of my friends jumped on a Zoom call and was chatting to me for 2 hours while it happened. One of my best friends. And so I was stuck with this global event. The next day, I've got to go out in front of 20,000 cricket fans and global event. And so I was going to do it because, as you know, as a speaker, the show must go on. And my wife said to me, don't do it. I said, but I have to do it. I'm contracted. We need the money. I need to get the thing back on track. My dad had said to me, don't cancel anything on my behalf. You can't come back to the UK because of those days you'd be in quarantine in in a hotel for 2 weeks before you could go anywhere if you could.
Mhm.
My dad only had hours. So I cancelled the next 4 days. I said to him, can I have 3 to 4 days? And I said, yes. And then after that, I went back out and did my gig. And I hated every single second of it. I hated it, but I had to do it for the family. I had to do it for my career. I had to do it because my dad said do it, and I knew that this will pass. And so that is probably the most painful, most challenging day because my dad was my favorite person in the world, which sounds terrible to say. But since then, I talk to my mum every day on Zoom. I'm closer to my wife, my kid. Um, and I do appreciate the one thing that people seem to forget, and it doesn't matter what side of the vaccination conversation you're on, the most precious gift we get is air. When you don't have air, you have nothing. Forget gold and clothing and cars and oh, darling, I'm in the papers. When you can't breathe, that's a gift we got from COVID. Take a step back. Can you breathe? You're having a good day. So I learned the importance of contentedness rather than happiness. If you
Wow.
can breathe and you're okay, your life is going well.
Wow. What an impactful experience to have your favorite person in the world, your father, to get a call in the middle of the night, to figure out what do I do? And to get through an experience, one of the most difficult experiences that any human being goes through.
It was a challenge and it still is. I mean, yeah, I still feel it, but um I was blessed with one thing, which is the fact that when you are an expatriate and you live in a different country, everybody's some distance away. So your normal anchor of seeing people all the time is different. You see them when you call them, when you talk to them, and then there's a big gap. So the only difference was I wasn't able to get to him more often. And so
Mm,
that was kind of like a little bit of compensation. But there comes a point in everyone's life where you got to turn around and say, I now have to be the dad for all my people. And I have to be the dad to the groups and my community. And
mhm,
it's very important to make sure that they do trust me and that I don't let them down. And that's what drives me more than
mm,
anything.
wow. So impactful. And speaking of that, give us your top three tips. I know you have probably 3,000 things that people can do. Like, give us the top three that's going to completely change somebody's life when they're
Wow.
moving
I can
forward.
reel off about 5,000, but choosing down to three. Okay, first thing
I
is
know.
this. Um, I would say always leave people better off than they were when you first met them, whoever they are. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. First of all, when you do meet them, ask a question, which is what's in it for them? What
Mhm.
can you do for them? Not what you can do for you. So when people quote and say, do unto others as you have done to you, that's not what the quote should be. The quote should be, what do they want? So, for instance, if I want to celebrate by getting drunk and I'm talking to somebody who doesn't drink, they don't want to get drunk to
Mhm.
celebrate. So you have to work out what they want and give them
Mhm.
what they want. And if you always leave people better off because you've done what they want, you'll make them want to reciprocate for you. And even if they
Mhm.
don't give it to you and they pay it forward, then they've got the idea that the world does work on gratitude. And so
Mhm.
that's the first thing I would say. Second thing I would say is never lie to number one. Don't lie
Mhm.
to yourself. Deal with
Mhm.
the stuff. It's horrible. Laugh at yourself. Have a sense of humor. Have a little joke that goes on in your head and realize that time is finite. You don't get the chance to go back and do stuff again. So just deal with it. And,
Do-overs.
sometimes you're fat, sometimes you're thin, but you get older. And one day on your final deathbed, as my dad experienced, and one day I will experience, and everybody who's watching, listening to this podcast will experience, you need to be able to turn around and say, did I give it my best shot? And if the answer is no, don't be an idiot and do it now. Do it, jump and grow wings on the way down. Get out of your comfort zone. Do the things that scare you because then you work out what does work. Instead of what most people do, which is ready, aim, fire, they never actually fire. What it should be is ready, fire, aim. So you go bang. Oh,
Mhm.
where did that go? Oh, it went over there. Now I'm going to aim and bang, get exactly where I want to be. So, whilst other people are aiming and just wandering and messing about, get out there because the big hitters are the ones who take the biggest risks.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
uh, that's the second one.
Wow. That's amazing. I've got a quote for us, but please continue.
Okay, and if I was to go for a third one, um, let's see, I would say be kind to yourself. Because it's really important for you to look in the mirror and just smile and go, this is me. You don't have to be anybody else. Everyone else is taken. I happen to be a little overweight, and I happen to be short and grey hair with a ponytail. And I don't care if people don't like it. Some people might decide that they don't want to talk to me. Color of skin, being a Brit, it doesn't matter. It's their problem, not mine. I love my wife. I love my friends. I love the people I connect to. And one day you realize that, and this is what is a problem for many people who have drug issues, drinking problems, narcissism issues, that you are enough. You
Mhm. Mhm.
are enough to get the results you need in your life. And it's not that you have to be like everybody else. You just have to be a happier, contented, successful in your own skin version of you. That old thing, and the American dream is a great example of it. British dream is not quite so much. British dream is like the American dream, but you got to queue before you get there. You don't run as fast as the Americans. So the idea that everybody could be everything is not true. Nobody can be you. You can't be anybody else. Some people are born with advantages. The Fortune 500 CEOs, most of them are over 6 foot. Do you know why?
Why?
Because when they're a tall kid at school, they get given opportunities to be head of a football team, head of a baseball team, class rep. Why? Because you're taller than the other kids. And so what happens is throughout their entire career, they're fast-tracked and they're coached to be a leader. So by the time they get to that bit, you know that they've already got that. They've had it from from small, taller than me. And so
Mhm.
you don't have the same advantages if you're born in a certain country at a certain time with certain parents with a certain religion, so all these things are a lottery. You get what you get and then you decide how to move on with it, and most people end up chasing somebody else's tail. Don't do that. Think of what will make you happy and go stick. That's what I want more of that. If you're super rich and like the richest man in the world, You get 3 meals a day. That might be the wonderful meals, but you don't have 20 meals a day. You have three. You drive one car. You might
Mm,
have many
live in one
partners, but
home.
that's Elon's choice. So
Mm.
I think it's really important to not dumb down and simplify, but to be happy in your own skin. And when you can get that and you're happy being you, you spend every day going, it's all right.
Wow. Wow, that is amazing. I know I'm going to be watching this interview many times over. You dropped so many golden nuggets.
Thank you.
I love it. I love the fact of recreating the moments that you need to get up, shake yourself off, keep moving forward. What makes you you, the importance of that. And that's one of the things that I invite our audience to take a look at. We're going to be watching reruns anyway. Let's go ahead and watch reruns of what's going to make us even more successful. I'm going to share one quote that I was really inspired to think of. Every man has to decide once in his lifetime whether to go forth and risk everything, or sit back and contemplate the successes of those who have triumphed. And I truly believe that we could only be ourselves. We could only go forward. We can create and recreate and do anything, but being with us, focusing on who we are, what our mission, our vision, being kind to ourselves, never lying to ourselves. I love that you said that. I think a lot of people, we wear masks. We've been wearing masks since we were babies. How do I fit in with mom and father and teacher, preacher, friends, Mary, Joe, whoever? Really focusing on you. I love me. I love that person in the mirror. I honor them. I respect them. I lead them. I treat them with kindness and care. If you were to share one final tip,
Wow.
what would you say? I know,
What
I
more do you
know.
want?
We're gonna have like so many interviews. This is like one of many coming, Dave. One final thing to your younger self. You're 13 years old. What would you say to your 13-year-old self about your life?
I think if I was to talk to a younger version of me, and I was to coach a younger version of me, I would say spend less time worrying about it and more time enjoying the experience. Because everything I've done, I am very, very careful. I do jump and grow wings on the way down, and I have done that my entire life. But what we tend to do is we tend to hang on to stuff longer than we should do. So I mentioned before earlier, I had to put one of my dogs to sleep today. I've got two beautiful dogs, and unfortunately, one of them got really old, and so I had to make that decision. And when I went to see the vet, and I took Ash, beautiful black Belgian Shepherd, who was she's about 15 years old, her legs had gone, and it was just unpleasant for her. He said the biggest regret that people have is that when they do actually let their dogs or their animals go to sleep, they realize they should have done it earlier. And I think that if I was to coach myself, I would say take the risks. Because the truth is, and here's a really useful quote to have, and I heard this ages ago, it's really useful. So, when you're 20, you worry about what everybody's saying about you. When you're 40, you think, I don't care what anybody says about me. And then you turn 60 and you realize that nobody was talking about you anyway.
Wow, so true. So
So
true.
be you, be happy as you, run the risk. If people don't like you, then that's their lookout. But it's really important that you do be you because what you don't see is what other people see. So, for instance, one of the things I do now is I don't say I'm a black man because actually my dad was white, my mum was black. I'm a mixed race guy. And somebody said to me on a podcast, "Why do you call yourself mixed race?" I said because there's lots of mixed race people who don't know who they are. They've got different identities because we're kind of like a mongrel nation. We've got nothing in common with each other apart from that level of confusion. Which side am I in? And why is it I don't feel either side is where I should really be? And so when I do share who I am, I know that long after I'm gone, or maybe after I finish this conversation, somebody somewhere will be watching it and going, that was just like me. Thanks for that. And they might look nothing like me, they might feel nothing like me, but there's a certain element of that because I shared it, they go, that's changed my life. And sometimes when you realize that life can be improved just by every day just doing 1% better than you did the day before to get you where you need to be. You don't need to run a marathon. All you need to do is put one foot in front of the other and repeat. You keep doing
Mm,
it and you got your marathon.
I love it. I love it, Dave. Thank you so much for tips, your love, your kindness, your care to share yourself. And we'll end it with that. So, to our audience, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to invite you, take 5 minutes, do three things that are going to move you forward. And you already know what it is that's important for you to do in order for you to move forward. To me, I'm going to click rerun again and again and again and again because I know there's something more that I can learn every time I listen to it. So, until the next time, go live your version of a happy, healthy, and fulfilling life.